Sam Reich. You run the Dropout TV streaming service, and you're the host and creator of the comedy game show Game Changer, where the rules and objectives change every episode. Well, first off, where did the idea for Game Changer come from?
So I think we were roughly 9 months into Dropout's trajectory when it became clear that the unscripted personality-based content that we thought was going to be our retention strategy, in other words, what kept folks on the platform, was seriously outperforming our uh, scripted shorter form series, which we thought were going to be our acquisition tool. In other words, get folks into the platform. Um, and we solicited pitches from the writers. I think it's the nature of the beast that when you have hired a whole bunch of folks to do scripted content, they aren't necessarily excited to pitch unscripted ideas. Game Changer was an idea that I had been sitting on myself for a couple of years. It was like in an old file somewhere. I think I was inspired by both Japanese game shows, which I'm a big fan of. If you've never seen Slippery Stairs, highly recommend it. Uh, and also this notion of creating a show where people didn't know what they were getting themselves into. And the original title, I think, was What the What? And a secondary title that we didn't move forward with was Game Show Show. Um, and basically, when no one else wanted to power this idea, I sort of proposed it to the group. I decided to fall on that sword. It took no one else stepping up to the plate for me to decide to play baseball.
And the show has grown over the course of its run. How different is the scale of the production now compared to when it started?
Oh my God. My producer would love to answer that question. Yeah, I think that look, it's the nature of the show, right? That we have backed ourselves into a corner where uh we can't repeat ourselves very much. We repeat ourselves every now and again. I call those episodes affectionately game samers. Um, but because we can't, and because we have to reinvent the wheel almost every episode, we have to stretch a little farther and a little farther every season. And also every season, Dropout grows, and we can afford to do that. We only do 10-ish episodes a year. Um, and so it gives us breaks between seasons for Dropout to evolve and our budget to increase. So season one, we shot on the fourth floor of an office building, which was still in our corporate days. And you can see how small the set is. It's really intimate. And then season two, we were in a proper studio. Season three was remote because of COVID. Season four and beyond, we've been in our new studios, our new home. And we have just started to really color outside the lines. So starting with I think end of season four, the studio itself became a little bit more of a character in the show. Now it's well integrated as a character into the show. And this season, the season we're in right now, is the first season where we leave the studio entirely for an episode, which I'm excited for folks to see.
The games themselves, they vary in complexity, but I'm struck sometimes by how elaborate some of the preparations must be, whether it's, creating props for, particular challenges, or at one point, setting up an entire secret escape room. What have been some of the most challenging games in terms of just the logistics of setting them up?
Yeah, I often say there are two types of game changer episodes, and one are the episodes where my players are doing a lot of work, and the other are the episodes where I'm doing a lot of work. I'm really fond of the former, the ones where I could just lean back and relax. But I do think as the show's gone on, we've leaned more so into the latter. So starting with yes or no, that was maybe the first episode we ever did that was a little hard on me as a performer, um, taking on the sort of lion's share of all the various incarnations of the question, yes or no. And I was swing dancing in that episode and doing a little bit of juggling in that episode. From a logistics standpoint, it doesn't get a lot more complicated than Escape the Green Room. I took on a creative partner in that episode, Tommy Honton, who runs Stash House escape room here in Los Angeles, or created Stash House. And I learned so much about escape rooms in such a short period of time. It was a true crash course for me. Um, uh, there is an episode that has yet to air this season called Beat the Buzzer, which was hugely challenging for our art team specifically. The two-part season finale this season, where we're not in the studio at all for that season finale, was really complicated for our production team. It was, I think, an 18 to 20 camera shoot, and we have never done anything nearly at that scale before. So yeah, I think, because the show transforms so much from episode to episode, it means that different episodes are hard on different departments. But hopefully at the end of the season, it's been hard on all of us at some point or other.
Well, sometimes it's hard on the contestants too. And one of the
Yeah.
enjoyable things about the show, of course, is watching them try to figure things out, and be confounded, or how much is it a consideration, to like how much you want to torture the contestants in any particular episode.
Yeah, it's a very unusual format that I feel like I'm still wrapping my head around even now in season 6. I've called it before something in between a game show, my weird little art project, a surprise party, and terrible prank. The piece of it that's a terrible prank, I would say, is sort of dialing up a bit as the show wears on. we, I think, especially this season, we wanted to return a little bit to our roots of season 1. This idea of you only really understand the game as you're playing the game is harder in practice than it is in theory, because you don't necessarily want to watch comedians flounder for a full half hour. You want to, just like playing a video game, you want to have them develop competency and then be surprised at sort of the next challenge that we've set up for them. That's like a core game theory principle, which is like, first you challenge people, but then you want them to develop mastery, and then you raise the stakes or complicate the game in some way. So I think this season, we have dared to make our players uncomfortable for the longest period of time. The episode that airs next this season, Deja Vu, my players truly had no idea what was going on for a full 10 minutes of the episode. I think I now have such a reputation as a monster that I have no choice but to continue to fulfill it. Of course, my players are now so suspicious of me that I can't invite them to dinner without them asking me if it's a Game Changer episode. So that's the only sad part in all of this. Is I've completely destroyed whatever trust was there.
And how challenging is it for you as the host to keep track of the kind of rules and procedures? Yeah, I'm thinking of something like Sam Says, where
Yeah.
you have to be sort of know where you are at all times, and how tough is that from week to week?
It's become more difficult as the games have become more complex. Sam Says was the first instance of us putting a production assistant on every player in order to keep track of their slip ups, which normally we don't need to do. Normally, I'm pretty competent at running the game. I don't have a teleprompter, which I think most folks wouldn't know, but part of that is we don't want players being able to look over and see what I have scripted. So there's a lot of memorization I have to do in advance of an episode, sort of run it pacing around my office and mouthing the words. And then try to strike a balance between being true to the game and also allowing for fun to happen that I didn't expect, which can be tricky. If someone improvises something that's very funny but breaks the game, I can't let them get away with it. And then finally having fun myself. And you really can see me kind of switch on and off in that way, where it's like one moment I'm kind of in the character of stiff game show host, and then the next I'm cackling because the players did something funny and surprising. So yeah, I it's as the games have become more complex, it's become more challenging. But um, I also think like enough time in corporate America gave me the necessary training to be able to stand there uh, with a straight face in a suit and play formal.
And have you had any ideas for the show that you've wanted to do that for whatever reason you couldn't do yet, or haven't figured out the way
Oh,
to kind of set it up?
absolutely. I mean, there's a laundry list of old ideas we go back to whenever we're beginning to brainstorm every season. And I usually don't reveal a lot of them because many of them are ideas that have come to fruition later seasons. The two-part season finale this season is something I've wanted to do for 2 seasons. The escape room episode was something we wanted to do one season before. It's almost like it takes us a year of simmering on something in order to be able to figure it out in the case that it's ambitious. But uh, one show I've started to hint at wanting to lampoon is American Ninja Warrior, and I'd be surprised if we get to that one anytime soon. that feels that feels a little ambitious, even for where the show is today.
And Dropout overall seems to have really found its voice with, Dimension 20 and these various improv comedy shows and game shows. Is it what you always imagined it would be, or did it take shape through a lot of experimentation?
A lot of experimentation. The truth is not at all. I mean, I think I came at this, as did our entire team, with a penchant for scripted comedy. I think we found unscripted comedy and realized how successful it could be for us through the process of doing Dropout. It's interesting how that's changed even my taste as a consumer. Like these days, I watch less scripted comedy and am more drawn to unscripted. I think it's partially that production values, especially on streaming, are sailing so through the roof that it's rare to consume something that feels all that authentic in the world of premium content. Um, I'm a huge fan of Taskmaster. I started watching Taskmaster because Game Changer fans were comparing it to Taskmaster, and I was like, well, I got to see who this is in order so that I'm not intentionally ripping them off. And then fell in love with the show, and now Alex Horn and I are buds. Um, and I watch a lot of scripted drama. But I almost yeah, I think the scripted comedy is in a little bit of trouble right now in general in entertainment. We haven't quite figured out how to capture the charm of the 90s, where projects were less expensive and more personality led and nonetheless scripted. I think that we may try that ourselves in the next couple of years. We'll be careful about those experiments, but I'd be eager to.
Now, I was excited when I first saw Game Changer on the Emmy ballot, and this year you're submitting multiple Dropout shows for consideration. What made you first want to throw your hat in that ring?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, in my heart of hearts, I'm a rascal and I love disrupting. And I think that if you look at the game show category in the Emmys, there's a lot of shows that I grew up on and I look up to, shows like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. But these are formats that have been around for so long. It's like there hasn't been innovation in that category for a long, long time. And that is part of the reason why Game Changer is exciting. So I think for me, it comes from this place of wanting to shake things up a bit, and feeling like we can or could. Um, you know, uh, Now that we see it's possible to submit, we feel like the game is, and I'll compare anything to a game that you let me compare to a game, sort of wearing down the industry with awareness over time. So, last year it was only Game Changer on the ballot. This year it's Game Changer, VIP, and Dungeons and Drag Queens on the ballot. Over the years, we're just going to keep trying to wear them down. And and uh we do feel like the jesters in the back of the class waving our hands and saying, teacher, notice me, for sure. um but but who knows, there needs to be a place in the Emmys for startup entertainment. If we're only rewarding established entities, then I don't think we're paying tribute to what art is all about. Art is about innovation and disruption, um and I think the Emmy should acknowledge that.
And there definitely has been some, innovation like here and there you see sneaking into these categories over the years, whether it's,
Yes.
Win Ben Stein's Money or Cash Cab or, Billy on
Yes.
the Street even was considered a
Which I
game show.
love, Billy. Yeah.
Um, so it's definitely a possibility to certainly break that mold.
Here's hoping, I mean, if we were to secure an Emmy nomination, I'm pretty comfortable in saying we'd be the one of the nichest subscription platforms to ever. I think I would wear that badge with pride. Um, I think that the sort of challenge is awareness about dropout in general. But frankly, Daniel, that's where people like you come in.
Yeah, and I'm happy to ring the bell or ring the buzzer or for Dropout and for Game Changer. I do think it's certainly one of the most exciting game shows on TV or streaming right now. So I'm and harder than Jeopardy a lot of times. If
Yeah,
you're a
no
contestant,
kidding.
I'd imagine. It's been a pleasure talking with you about it today, and best of luck with your Emmy campaign.
Thanks, Daniel. I super appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time and championing us. It means a lot.